Yes.
All right.
Welcome everybody. Another Thursday at 2. Hey.
Excited to be here. We have a big day today, and this has been a really amazing week for me because I've been speaking to 3 people who are busy flyering it up, who don't want to be on stream. They don't want to be on chat. They don't want to email. They don't want to do nothing. They just want to do their thing. And I'm so happy and proud and exhilarated that that's occurring. And then last night, I got a letter that blew me away from an ex-Scientologist who hasn't said a word to anybody in 37 years, ever. And she's going to come on my show at the end of October. Fantastic. And blow it open. And that was just amazing. And then I get these emails from people who say that I helped them through really hard times with my strength, and I don't feel like I've had any strength. I've just been doing what I'm doing.
Yes, but you have been demonstrating strength. Absolutely.
It's tough. I mean, I feel like in my mind I've been wrecked so many times, but I'm okay with it because I knew, and this is what makes me so happy and why I'm bringing this up, because I thought to myself, if I'm going to go through all this stuff to try to get better, if I can help other people doing it, that'd be such a victory in itself that it would really aid me mentally. And it really has, because like, it was so brutal going through all that stuff, but now that I'm on the other side of it, it's paying dividends.
Yes. And
it's crazy. I'm ending up with tons of ex-Scientologists in my chat. The other day, I had like 6 or 7 of them. Fantastic. I'm just like, holy shit.
That's amazing.
And people telling me behind the scenes that they're trying to get the guts up to join up and be a part of this. And and I'm like, I'm trying to just be completely straightforward and say, hey, it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I can't lie to anybody. Way harder than I thought, but totally worth it. I'm really, really excited that I'm actually seeing the difference that going through all that publicly made, and it's just starting to happen. It's like, wow, man. That I can't tell you how good that makes me feel. It just,
well, congratulations. It's you absolutely deserve it. And well, you've put yourself out there as this kind of tireless fighter for this cause, and accepting of multiple viewpoints. Of course, everybody has their line, but by positioning yourself this way, you're of course you're going to attract this stuff. I mean, it's by design. You've made yourself more palatable to more people and safe enough to approach and serious enough for so many ex-Scientologists to approach. This is what I hoped would happen when I first met you. That you inspire more people, because your story is fairly unique, and you could inspire more people who are under the radar to come forward and to start to exercise some of this bullshit.
Yeah. And you said that. I mean, it's really a trip. It's like that one day somehow became this, and it's fucking mind-boggling.
Yeah, like, that's crazy.
I just remember sitting on that stoop waiting for you to finish talking to somebody. I don't remember who you were talking to. Maybe it was Eric Levi.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was Eric.
Okay. And you guys were going on, and then finally you were like, what are you, like an OSA weirdo just listening to us or whatever? And I'm like,
yeah.
Actually not.
I almost made a huge mistake. I'm glad I asked questions, So But
But again, you know, I thanked you many times publicly, but
I didn't know what to expect, and I was there at the, you know, the belly of the beast, and so what's next, you know? I think they had taken like my protest signs off of my car that day, and I was all, you know, antsy about that or something.
yeah, but the way you handled it was literally why all this happened, and that's why I credit you all the time with that, because I never would have even that's probably what made me so manic anyway, because I never talked about anything. But then when you were like, go ahead, then I was like, okay, I'm probably going to have like 5 minutes, and then you're going to be like, all right, go away or whatever. And so I didn't know what to say or how to start. And I'm just like, Scientology sucks. It all sucks and fucking sucks. Like, I don't even know what I was saying. Like, I can't even go back and watch it. It's just so uncomfortable for me because I was completely spinning off the side of the planet.
Oh, you were uncorking all of those years, you know, and I mean, that's not going to be the most agile live that you ever had, but how instructive that was, and how informative it was immediately. I'm like, the community, this audience that I'm having, and whoever else this person talks to is going to benefit from hearing this. Like as soon as you started, like. And then we're just hit it off. We're just having fun as well. So that made it really easy.
It was so weird though to like also be able to tell somebody negative stuff about Scientology, and then there was no possible blowback.
Yeah.
You know, and in fact, you were all like, wait, cool, you know, so, yeah, Scientology sucks shit. Absolutely. Continue. But that's not something I had heard in my entire lifetime.
Right.
To that point. You know, it's like you shut your mouth in Scientology.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
So the idea that I could be where you were actually inviting me to continue and stuff, like it was just so weird to me, and I'm like, this is going to definitely close down in another 5 minutes, so I better talk about render, LRH, this, that, and the other, like fit that into the next 30 seconds, and then I couldn't remember what I'm even talking about because I was just out of my fucking gourd that I could even be negative, and I'm in front of the blue building, and I'm like, fuck you, in front of the blue building. That's insane.
Wow.
You know, that's like
how liberating that is.
Really. I mean, that was losing your family instantly.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
even when you're out and you're not, you know, aligned with that, it speaking out, being critical, doing what you did that day would be losing your family who's still connected.
Yeah.
And so it just forces the silence throughout.
And you're so used to it. It's just sort of like, because I've had really close friends that have asked me, like, how do you endure that kind of stuff? And it's like, the truth is, the only answer I have is once you've eaten 100 shit sandwiches, one more ain't that bad. You know what I mean? It's all you know. It's all you know.
True. Right.
You know? Yeah. It's like, that's the best way I can describe it. It's not like you're happy, and it's not like you don't know it's a shit sandwich. It's just that you've eaten so many of these.
Yeah, and sustained yourself so many days. It's not happy making, but it is your existence. And I mean, if you do it to kids, then, you know, they don't expect anything else. Their emotional levels won't reach kind of their natural peaks. They won't discover themselves. And within a high control group, you'll limit their language. The number of words that you said. You said something right before the stream. It was something about Scientologists and their vocabulary. Was the
yeah, the nonstop cursing. Like, never did I know people with larger vocabularies use less words.
Yes.
You know, like I love listening to you on your train of thought shit, you know, or whatever you call that, train of consciousness or whatever, because you'll blow out some 47-cent words, you know, along with some 3-cent ones, but it's all fun to listen to. But like I've heard 15-minute conversations that had MFer in it and SOB in it, 31 times. Like you can't cram another curse in there. And that always struck me as weird anyway, because it's like, it's such a repulsive, low vibration conversation,
Yeah.
that it's like, can't we do a little better in this?
Well, yeah, it's, yeah, the saltiest talk of like your oil rig worker or
Yeah.
somebody that is facing death constantly, your soldier in a foxhole, right?
Right.
The Marines in, as they call it, the shit, right, are going to talk like that. Or if you went to the Samuel L. Jackson School of Discourse, right,
Right.
you'd be able to fit a bunch of MFers in there.
You totally understand describing how the bayonet almost went through your jacket to the guy in the hole with you or whatever, and being just curse. Yep. But when it's a Wednesday, we're talking about the communication course. How is it that you can manage to just turn this into a disgusting, lowbrow, conversation? But
yeah, that irony is thick.
It really is.
Yeah, that's
and these are people who don't forget. Like I know, and this is what, like, I know you have a big vocabulary, right? Davey Mismanaged has a big vocabulary. You can use it when you please. I have a large vocabulary if I want to blast. But the thing is, when like I know the guy I'm talking to, looked up this word and found the definition that applied. That was actually the 9th definition in the collegiate Webster's.
Yes.
And then had to clear that all the way back up. This guy's got plenty of words that he could use to describe this that don't have MF or DS or whatever in there, and SOB and everything. It just, wow, and you know how you can do it in a friendly way? Like people can, like you could be with friends and be like, hey man, give me a joint or something, or, give me a cigarette, or, hey, pass me a beer, you piece of shit. And the guy just being friendly and it's all good.
I mean, I'm from Boston, so that's it's so like everybody's generally, hey, how's it going? F you, buddy.
So there is a way that you do that, but like, it would never be that way. It would always be like one step removed. And so I think they wanted it to be that way because it became pretty obvious if that affected you or not.
Right. Well, and also to have a constant air of hostility. It's like, and that's built into everything else, like the knowledge reports on everybody, on, your friends or whatever. Everybody has their knife just out of sight or maybe out. And so, yeah, that way of talking to each other, it's like, yeah, MF or I. Well, it's like your opponent that you're smack talking across the poker table.
Oh yeah, it was weird for me too, because again, like I'm an adult in all this, but I can't go home and start F-bombing it up.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
And
right.
I'm a kid.
As an adult, right? Yes, exactly. Jeez.
And then if anyone else saw adults talking around a kid like me, if they ever saw that, they would lose their shit. Any normal person would be like, "What's wrong with you people?
Right.
You got a 10-year-old here. What are you doing?"
Yeah, exactly.
And yet,
hey, there are kids here.
But I'm a billion-year-old adult, so I can sort of get away with it. I did it very rarely, and I just acted as if it wasn't my thing, which it wasn't. Yeah. But I didn't want anyone to think that it was appalling to me.
Yeah.
I didn't want anyone to believe that for a second. I'm like, oh, it's all, yeah, for sure. But,
so wouldn't that be like meant to get that out of you with TR1, right? That would be like, if you're reacting to that, if you're reacting to coarse discourse, perhaps anybody could bull bait you into reaction.
I guess you could look at it that way. Okay. But it was also like really uncomfortable if my mom, like I hated, let's say I'm talking to the supervisor or another fellow student or something, and it's a little graphic or whatever, and they're treating me like an adult, but then my mom comes and I'm just like, oh, wow. right? That's so uncomfortable, and it would just freak me out. Like, you can't talk like that in front of my mom. That's insane. You know, there's all these feet we're stepping on a regular day, you know, with that language that I never was happy with. But
yeah, all the social graces eroded away pretty much.
yeah,
And so there's no gentility or like shared humanity and kind of just basic conversation.
just being nice, like just be pleasant.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so you don't get that like fuzzy feeling with people as much. You're more on guard and in like a fight or flight. And
Yeah,
like a whole bunch of FUs is like displaying like so many spikes on a punk's jacket, how much fight you might have.
that was actually, you put it perfectly a second ago, and it didn't hit me till now. But that's exactly it. Like, that really is it. It's like, why should this have any effect on you at all?
Yeah.
It would be their take.
Yeah.
Not that, you know what, this is just low vibration, low brow, bottom feeder conversation.
Yeah.
But no, it's like, why? You'll never be able to talk about the real why in Scientology anyway, right? Which is what we're talking about. How come you have to be disgusting? It would immediately pivot and be an issue with you. Why is this disturbing? How come you can't stay in present time? You know? And it's like,
disturbed by anything, and this is nothing. And you know these people. So yeah, exactly. Let's start these training routines again.
oh God. Well, anyway, we have an amazing guest today. I can't wait to get it rolling. And Ontario's finest. We have from the Exploring the Cultiverse or what? No, not exploring the Escaping the Cultiverse, and then comma That's the A. Yeah, the Canadian A. And her name is Gabrielle. She's been doing this a long time. I know her channel is at least 6-7 months from what I was watching, but it could be way before that. I didn't even look how far back it went. But she was an ethics officer, and I can't wait to talk to her. This is going to be fun as hell. So I say we bring her up. What do you think?
All right, absolutely. Bringing to the stage Gabrielle, Escaping the Cultiverse. Hey, all right.
So
Hi,
glad
guys.
you could be here. Thank you so
Hey.
much for being here.
My pleasure.
It's a super pleasure for me, for sure. And you're an ethics officer. I spent everything I did was so I didn't go to your office, by the way.
Yeah, that was pretty much what most people tried to do.
Everything I did was to figure out how to avoid your office.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was the bad cop.
I don't know if you heard me bring this up before, but I was actually chalking in front of AO. I was chalktologizing, and I happened to write, just for funsies, the OT8, right? Now that you know who you aren't, you're ready to know who you really are.
Yeah.
And then I was writing also, are you responsible for the lower conditions you're in? Stuff like that. And then it hit me on the condition of enemy is you have to figure out who you really are.
Yeah.
And that's the same damn near exactly the same thing as the end of OT8. You're ready to know who you really are. So enemy and OT8 are right there. I think when you finish OT8, you're in the condition of enemy because they know damn well they're never going to talk to you again. You're about to lose your mind, spin clean off the side of the planet. And so you're an enemy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I never got up to OT8. I only got to ARC straight wire, and that was enough for me.
Oh, God, yeah. You kidding
But
me?
plenty of sec checking, plenty of interrogations, that's for sure.
Yeah, I have a playlist called Translating Hot Garbage, where I go I go over everything from the personality test and its purpose, and all the way through sec checks. and try to put things in a way that it's where people can see what it's really for. Because nothing in Scientology, in my estimation, it never had anything to do with what they said. It always had a ulterior purpose that was incredibly effective. That was control and nothing else. But with the help of the ethics officer and fear and anxiety and etc., you could keep people in line. But
Yep.
I need to know how you got started. Number one, like how did you get trapped, and how long did it take for you to be trapped? Did it take like a year or 2 or 3, or when did you know you were sort of in a bit of a trouble as well, as far as being able to extricate yourself from there?
Yeah, well, blonde hair, so it took me a little longer. So I got in when I was in my early 20s, and I was introduced through my brother-in-law, through a friend who was a musician.
Okay.
And they had been in a band together forever. They were in this band called Handley Page. I was in Vancouver at the time. That's where I was born and raised, and where I was on staff, in Vancouver. So I had like this really crappy relationship. The guy had cheated on me, and we had been together for like 5 years, and blah blah blah. So I was at one of those cross points in life, and the guy introduced me to Scientology, and I did what's called the Ups and Downs in Life course.
I did that one.
Yeah, so that's where you learn all about suppressives and antisocial personality and potential trouble sources and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of that course, you're supposed to like basically name who the SP is in your life. So, that made me kind of happy, because who doesn't have somebody in their life that isn't, their best cheerleader or whatever. So I ended up disconnecting from the guy, and it was like, wow, this is great. This stuff works.
Wow.
Yeah. So shortly after that, I got recruited onto staff. And during the day, I was working at a bank and doing my thing there. I was like a cashier supervisor kind of thing. And I ended up quitting my job and joining staff. It was the whole premise of me joining staff was to go down to Los Angeles and to study the organization executive briefing course and the flag banking course, or whatever it's called, FEBC. So it was the OEC FEBC.
Right.
It was the second, I believe it was the second or third evolution of the OEC FEBC. So within about 6 months or less, I quit my job. I moved out of the place I was living in. That was the guy who was toxic. I was down in LA trying to finish my second course for the staff statuses, which is really unusual. You generally finish your staff status 1, staff status 2, and then you move on, right? But no, this was a big evolution, and everything in Scientology has to happen now. So, yeah.
What year was this?
That was 89.
Okay.
A little while ago.
And that was at ASHO?
No, that wasn't at ASHO, because it was executive training, so that was at the HGB.
Oh,
so
okay.
I was living in the Big Blue area, the PAC base, and I was going to the HGB to do the training during the day.
And how are you paying bills?
Well, I finagled that. You always make things go right in Scientology, right?
Yeah.
So I had my sister pay one of my bills while I was away, because I was only supposed to be away for 6 months. And my parents were paying my other bills. I mean, when you go down for training, especially from Canada, right? You got to organize your life to some degree. So you're not like, paying rent or anything like that. So I had moved out of my place. I was actually living at my sister's house. So I wasn't paying rent there. And but I did have debt. So because I had done I bought what's called a life repair where I got
Okay.
my first auditing. And I mean, that was another thing too, where when you get auditing, you start to get you get a reality of what it's about and stuff like that, right? So it's not like I was totally green, but I mean, I had no idea the scam that it was, right?
Sure. I always
And
like so many people today though don't realize, like, I knew staff members that were actually able to pay bills off of being on staff. That's how good the stats were. Okay.
Right.
So it wasn't like it was always like it is today. Yeah.
right. In Canada, it always sucked. It always did. I mean, the Continental Liaison Office, I mean, they were so freaking poor. It was sad when I went there and I saw the conditions that they lived in. And, I mean, I worked, I made okay money for my age, and I was brought up in a middle class family and stuff like that. So I had stuff. I had a car, blah, 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 right? And it was like to see the standard that they were living in Toronto and Canada. It was just like everything was infested with cockroaches. I mean, it was the same in LA around that time too. It was disgusting.
From all reports that I've heard as well, yeah. Just being inside of the Wilcox just a month ago and seeing, I mean, they've refurbished the thing and now it's this trendy hotel, but seeing where they had kids 9 or 12 to a room there in LA, it just the heart falls out of your chest. Imagining it.
Yeah. I mean, when when I got to LA and I got there, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. There was nobody there to greet me other than a real grumpy old security guard that probably didn't even want to be there. I probably woke him up, right? So he's like, go to the second floor and find an empty room to sleep in. Well, like this, it was just, I'm like so green. I'm really young. I have never been away from home, never been on a plane before.
Wow.
It was like such a culture shock. So I'm like grabbing the stack of mattresses. They had this disgusting stack of mattresses, which was infested with crabs. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. I kept crying as I'm dragging this mattress down the freaking hallway to this half renovated room. I just threw it down and I threw myself down and I just, cried myself to sleep. That was my introduction to LA, Scientology in Los Angeles.
Thank
it
you
really
so much for sharing that. That's
Damn.
Really paints a picture. And I think it's informative for many of us that haven't experienced anything like this to hear that and hear the reality of it.
Yeah. So I can imagine what the kids were being treated like,
Oh, man.
I mean, there was to a room. It's funny, when you guys protested in LA, I could see my room. And it was just like, oh, God. I always tried to get the window. I'm sure there's quite a few people. But, there was, I think, about maybe 20 girls to a room, then a small bathroom with a toilet and sink, and then another 9 or 10 girls in another room, and we all shared that one bathroom. Yeah.
Wow.
It was pretty gross.
Well, it's like the kind of sweatshops that you hear about, really. That kind of thing.
Yeah. It was so hard to get used to. And honestly, I don't know why I just fell into place. I mean, it was I always look at the positive side for the most part, and I was very determined to do what I needed to do there. So for me, it was like it was like, okay, this is the sacrifice. It really sucks, and I'm super uncomfortable, and I hate it. But there I would keep my eye on the mountain, kind of thing, the whatever, the fake mountain.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that I was there for a year and a half.
Did you like, I've heard these kind of stories where like a freshman, will to join the marching band, you got to go through some brutal hazing, and then they'll be crying about it to their friends and their family, and how dare anyone do this, and I can't believe it, blah blah blah. But then when they become a sophomore, they can't wait to put that on somebody else, and that always freaked me out. Like, how the hell could that be? But then I wondered if that applied to like an ethics officer. In other words, let's say I was getting beat around and things were not going my way, because they don't anyway in Scientology, but let alone like extra special not going my way. Would it be a way for me to get back at people to become an ethics officer?
Mm-mm. No.
No.
No. So I'll try and sort of give you my mindset.
Yeah.
When I was down in LA, I did a course called the Life Orientation Course, LOC. And you find your purpose in life. And I mean, I did this like wholeheartedly, very sincerely. I put my everything into it.
Sure.
So it's a massive course. I don't know if you guys know anything about it, but
I never did it.
no. So you guys are familiar with the org board, right? Like, this
Yeah.
is the first section of it. So the first section of the course is you're writing up your OWs on every single division of the org board. Wrap your head around that. So you have a subject, like, let's say,
Wow.
stealing apples.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the Department of Stealing Apples. You have to write up all your OWs in relation to or on the subject of steal. So there is it's a
Just
9
you mean
division.
overts and withholds, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just for the audience, they might not know.
You're writing your overts and withholds on from this huge subject. It was just like when I was told what I had to do. First of all, I hardly even knew what an org board was because I was so new to Scientology.
Mhm.
I had never written up overts and withholds before. I had like a little bit of sec checking, so I kind of knew what overts and but you're also educated in all that. You do what's called a method 9 through all the conditions and all the stuff in the ethics book. So
Mhm.
method
Oh
9
God.
is a type of word clearing. Like, yeah, see, Eric? Like, honestly, I could throw up in my mouth just thinking about it a little more.
That's so brutal.
It's like doing method 9 is very intense word clearing, and it takes a long, you're reading everything out loud.
Yeah.
And if you stumble on something, you have to look up that word and you have to fully clear it, blah 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 blah. So that was one part. So you had to write up all these overts and withholds. Then you did a bunch of conditions. You did also what's called repair of past conditions. So you go back into your past, anything that had happened to you that was, negatively affected you, and you do conditions from the past, but you're in present time. It was like a real mind effery, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And then there's some other stuff. And then you get to the point where you find your purpose in life. And that's where I really dug in. I dug into the whole course. I kind of like that stuff, right? I kind of like dissecting things and really inspecting my own life and what am I all about? What's my purpose? Blah blah blah. So,
Yeah.
and it's all geared, which I didn't know then, but I know now. It's all geared towards being a staff member.
Yeah.
So no matter what you do, your purpose is going to be a staff member.
Yeah.
And you're working. It's just like so rigged. It's so
Taking your natural inquisitiveness and just fitting it into a funnel that goes one place, rather than, like you're saying, I want to know more about myself. I want to be introspective and ask questions. It's like the motto on the temple to Apollo is know thyself. It's like
There
it's
you
the
go.
beginning of a lot of this. So, and taking all of that and just having all of it funnel to one decision in the decision tree. That's called behavioral, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I rem-
I mean, the ethics conditions alone are complete reconditioning of a person, right?
I
Just
remember.
the ethics conditions.
I don't know if this hit you, Gabrielle. But did you do the? You must have done the SPPTS course or the PTSSP course, right?
I didn't do it from cover to cover, but I've read all of the
Okay.
issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I had a moment on that course where I did think to myself, maybe the best position in the world is an ethics officer because the tech won't go in if the ethics is out.
Exactly.
So at the basic, I'm thinking, man, being an ethics officer might actually be the key to clearing this planet, right? But then I had that like I didn't want to be that person that people don't want to go to.
Yeah.
That would have.
I mean, that's not really what an ethics officer should be in Scientology. They shouldn't be the big evil bad person. You know, the ethics officer is supposed to have what's called ethics presence. So, you know, have you ever heard of that?
Of course,
Yeah.
I'm a net auditor, so yeah, I went through, finished the new aerodynamics course at 12, 13, and I grew up in it since I'm 0 years old. So yeah, everything you're saying, I'm on board.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me just wrap up the thing on the LOC. So, when I finished the LOC, my purpose in life was more or less to be the head of HCO, which
Okay.
is the Hubbard Area Secretary.
Yeah.
So, that was my purpose. And of course, under that would be all the ethics, all the justice,
Absolutely.
personnel, communications. So, and so that was how I was geared. I was molded into that frame of mind and that beingness.
Right.
So, and that's what took me all the way through the training that I did. As far as being an ethics officer, I never thought, oh, I'm going to get you, you motherfucker. You know, it was never like that. Like if I saw a KR on somebody, it wasn't like, oh, what a piece of shit. You know, I wasn't that type. I've never been that type of person, right? Unless you wrote a KR on me, then it was game on. Because you guys were talking earlier about how you had to protect yourself. You were always on guard. My fists were always clenched. I was always having to protect my position. I was always having to protect myself. It never stopped. It was constant through the whole thing. You are always fighting.
Do you see what I say? Selfless. I mean, I told you this 2 days into my journey here.
Absolutely.
This is what I keep saying, and you keep hearing other exes say this. It's that it's 24/7. It never goes away.
Yes.
It's from the second I wake up till the second I go to sleep.
It's
and that's why if it wasn't for comic books, I would have went insane, because that gave me like 20 minutes, to just not think of anything but Captain America or whatever the hell.
Kind of not be there. You could be in the comic book.
Yeah. But that's what I keep saying. It's like it's I'm not joking. It's a 24/7 deal. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it just freaked me out, because I've been saying this over and over.
You're absolutely 100% spot on, Eric.
Yeah.
I'm like that all the time. I'm combative. It's so hard to like tone it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when you're on staff? I don't know if you were on staff,
No.
but when you're on staff and you have seniors, they knock you down all the time, so you have to get back up and keep fighting.
Yeah. Or
Right?
like you
I
don't have
mean,
a position anymore, right?
yeah.
They'll just, I'm guessing there's always competition for whatever seat you may hold, whatever desk.
Not necessarily for my post.
Okay.
Most people didn't want to be an HCO.
Okay.
It is a rough and tumble division. It's
Yeah.
hard, and it's for a reason, because you're dealing with so much.
Right.
You had the
For lack
spotlight
of a
on you.
better, yeah, all the time.
She had the spotlight on her at all moments. Like, remember, you've heard Natalie talk about how just wanted to go. I don't want a promotion. I just want to stay here and chill. Where no one can,
reading the COPLs, like the language, the tone that these are dictates from on high, and this is the office that represents all of these structural dictates for what reality is, what Scientology is, how it's meant to be practiced, what is and is not ethical, who's an SP
Right.
and who's not, and why.
Right.
And I mean, it would have to be cutthroat because of the power that is in that office.
Yeah. And that was the appearance of it. Behind the scenes, it was a whole different can of worms, right? Because you had your seniors and they were demanding shit out of you.
Yeah.
And the division itself is huge in its functions of what it has to do. It has to hire people as well. It has to fill that organization. You know what it's like to try and hire people who know Scientology is a cult? It's really hard, but you don't know that. You don't know that. So I mean, the tricks and the slimy shit that went on to try and hire people was just like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't like that. I've never been a slippery, slimy kind of salesman kind. And there are lots of those I found that people can do that kind of stuff. I get an ulcer from it. I can't do that kind of stuff.
Well,
The only place I would have fit in on that entire org board would have been a registrar, because that was one of my friends anyway. But also I realized that that's the only place where you could sort of go rogue. And if you come back with a check, you're obviously on policy.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It doesn't matter if I promised you're going to grow 3 arms. If this is $130,000 check and it clears, I'm on policy. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's registrars are a whole other beast. They really are. I couldn't do it.
I wouldn't want to, but I'm saying that was the only place I was like, I could see that you could sort of get away with murder much easier than you could. Like, I would hate to be an ethics officer, a supervisor, something where it's just cut and dry. The stats down. What Selfless and I laugh about every Thursday at 2. What I didn't want to be in that spot where I'm like, oh man, I'm so screwed. And it's coming. You're not getting out of it. So much so that I even made sure my stats were up as a student, right? Like, where this is how hard I was at it. Like, I literally, Gabrielle, I would like a tick, like a nervous tick, I would start demoing every, you name it, 2 minutes, right? I start moving some paper clips around and pencil and bullshit, and then be like, and then continue studying, because that's also points, right? I get the 5 points, and Whenever someone would want me to help in anything practical, I got my 75 points, and like I would always make sure my points were rocking. And I'm telling you, it kept me out of a whole bunch of shit because I saw other people have issues, but always. But if you notice their graph, their points were down. That's the only thing anyone gave a shit about at ASHO. That was the only graph anyone cared about.
Yeah.
Well, so
that I could see.
So that, I mean, your supervisors and the people running the courses can get passed for actually properly running the course, right?
Yeah, if the stats are up, the points are up, because otherwise they're going to be like, you need to come in more time. We need to get you here. We got to get you moving. And if we can't get you moving, then we got to go to the word clear. And if that ain't working, then you're going to go see Gabrielle, So it's like, fuck this. I'm demoing. I'm doing everything. I'm doing checkouts. I'm going to the practical room when anyone needs anything. And I'm racking up points, baby.
Right.
Yep.
It's desperation. It's when it comes to stats, it's desperation. I mean, like my stats in the HCO, which is just, I think I saw a few people asking about it. It's called the Hubbard Communications Office. So it's L. Ron Hubbard's office. Right. Back in the day, it was his thing. So it has like all this stupid significance in Scientology. But my stats were like people hired. And, that is like the hardest thing ever. Like even Scientologists don't want to be on staff because it sucks so hard. Right.
Yeah.
Because you don't get any pay and you have to work a lot and you get shit on all the time. Everybody knows this, right?
Right.
So I mean, like to be upstat in my division was next to impossible. The only thing I was able to manipulate and falsify and do whatever I could was a stat called the letters out. I was called the letter Nazi because I would make people write letters. Well, back then they could do emails counted too, right? So I would like go to each individual staff member, especially on a Wednesday night, because my stats had to be the foundation stats had to be in Wednesday night. And I would report them up because we weren't in during the day on Thursday before 2. So I was cracking the whip. And everybody else is trying to get their stats done. And there I am telling, write your letters. So that was probably the only thing I actually had full control over is that one stat. And that's just like such a minor stat in the whole scheme of things. But I didn't give a shit. It was like I would at least have one stat that was an affluence. And that's I was happy with that.
Yep. In the academy, they would make us write letters every week, to people who were off lines. And once I realized no one read mine, I was like, "Oh fuck yeah!" And I'm just like, "See you soon." Like literally, like see the letter U soon, and or come on back.
Yeah. Yeah, I was the one that would go down to the course room, and at the time you had carbon paper. That's how you remember that? You had to have one to mail out, and one would go into the central file, into the person's file. This was what's called central files, right? So I'd have to take 2 pieces of paper. I'd have to slip the carbon paper in there, and then I would hand it out to all the students in their little envelope and make sure that they addressed the envelope. It's just like, talk about busy work.
But that's the reason why I thought a registrar, the real reason why it's the only job that I could consider would be because even if the stats are in the shitter, bottom of the 9th, you could still pull it out where the supervisor knows he or she is toast on Tuesday. They know they are toast, not even going to get near it. Yep. But a registrar could come back last minute. Come on, baby. It still wins.
Yeah.
One big check.
There was one post that I had always really wanted was the qual librarian. That would be like a super chill kind of post. Like, all you do is make sure the books are being put back into the library. It's the qualifications librarian. So that's where people get their resources. Like, auditors, when they're getting crammed on something, they come and grab a book, whatever it is that they need. Staff go down there, grab a book. That's all you're doing, is monitoring the books. I don't even know what a stat is for some, but that would be the most probably relaxed. Huh?
Book refiling, like,
Something. I'll have to
getting
look
the
that up.
index
Now I
correct.
really want
That sounds like a good job. Yeah, I could see that.
pages read. Pages read by
Right.
staff, or I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly.
Man
But yeah,
alive.
Sounds like a
So
good place to hide.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I was also the ED, the executive
Okay.
director, back when I came
Wow.
back from LA. There was this RTC mission, so religious technology mission that came down, kind of like Claire Headley. She was
Mhm.
in RTC,
Mhm.
so it was like a person like her and another one sent down to Vancouver, and they basically cleaned house of staff who they didn't like. And I ended up being the executive director for the Church of Scientology of British Columbia.
Wow.
Yeah. So that happened early on. That was before I was the ethics officer.
And how old were you at that point?
Probably around 25, 26.
So you were
What?
killing. You were killing.
Holy Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, so I had to keep the doors open of the Church of Scientology. That was
Wow.
interesting.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Who was
So, and it
your
was
first report in that position as ED?
say that again?
Who was your first report?
I have no idea.
Like, who did you like, if you're the executive director of what, of HCO,
Of the entire
of
organization.
of the entire org. So then, like, on the orgs, did you report back to LA?
No, our head office was in Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
that's where the Continental Liaison Office was. So it
I
would go
see. So
Class
Continental
5
Liaison.
org, Continental Liaison Office. Then it would go the continent. I think it was West US.
Right.
And then it would be, I guess, flag or whatever. There's all sorts of management bullshit in the middle, right?
Yeah.
So
That-
there was like
sure.
a commanding officer at the Continental Liaison Office in Toronto, and that's who my senior was.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would get, I mean, it was like a micromanaged position because I wasn't trained at all for it. I just ran on gut instinct. So I would, and because they basically, just like annihilated the staff, there was
Yeah.
hardly anybody to do anything. So I managed to hire some people, like in like the main, you want some people, you need people in main areas like the public division to handle anybody coming in and kind of like reception.
Mhm.
You have to have somebody in treasury.
Yes.
You want somebody in HCO minimally to do the communications, because I was telling this story to Declare Dave. They have at the time they had just these telex machines. There wasn't like
Yeah.
computers. Have you ever
Oh,
heard
yeah.
of a telex machine?
Yeah.
You see,
We're
it was like
aware
a
of
dot matrix printer. So you'd get like hundreds of these telexes, and it would just keep rolling and rolling. You'd have to like keep pulling it. Then you'd have to cut each communication. It was just like maddening.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was so stupid. So I did manage. The doors never closed while I was there. I managed to get money in for the organ to keep things going. And I mean, the staff didn't get paid because there wasn't enough for that.
Right.
But yeah, and then finally, what's that?
Enough for KSW. You were keeping it working.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But when it's like, think about it. You're in charge of this church. You're in charge of this organization. It's not even it's like, if it closed, like, it would be the worst possible thing ever.
Yeah.
At least in, from my standpoint. And this happened just before the very first golden age of tech came out.
Right.
Okay.
So I was having to, I think I was on the post for about 6 months. Then we got the word that this evolution was coming, and we had to get people down to Flag to train as a supervisor and an auditor, or a supervisor and a word clearer. Those were the two positions we needed. That was the same time when, like, Aaron and Nora and those guys were at Flag, and then they got switched over. They were training as auditors, and then they got switched over to this program.
Right.
So they were there for a year, and I got word of this whole evolution that was going to happen. And it was like, are you kidding me? Like, this thing was huge from a staff member's perspective. Like, the public knew nothing, but I was just shitting my pants because so much needed to be done. And I didn't know how to do any of this stuff, but it didn't matter. You made it go right. It was so nuts. Like, you had to have renovations done. You had to have money paid to buy equipment, all these newfangled fucking simulators. It was like, did you do all that golden age of tech stuff, Eric?
No, I thankfully was
You're gone by then.
well, I mean, I wasn't gone. I still was doing, but I was like, it didn't affect me in any way because
Right.
I just ended up doing, like, the Pure was my last thing, and then I was done.
Mm-hmm. So when that evolution hit, when everybody came back, that was when they canceled certificates of all the auditors. They went, what you've done in the past is nothing. You cannot audit unless you do all this new stuff. Mm-hmm. It pissed so many people off. And a lot of the old timers went, we're out of here. Because now they can't audit. And Scientologists took that very seriously. It's a real, it's degrading. It's like telling a doctor they can't, or a surgeon that they can't do surgery anymore unless they go back and redo all their education. Because it takes a long time to become an auditor.
Right.
Right, Eric? How long did it take you to get up to where you are?
4.5 years.
Right. And
5 years.
And they had to pay for it all themselves. Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah.
Like, Miscavige, man, the guy is diabolically, like, he's insane, but he's brilliant at the same time. It cost people so much money to redo all of that stuff. I mean, they had some shortcuts and stuff. They were called the certainty courses, where you got tested on some of the stuff and then you had to sort of fill in the blanks with all the new stuff. But you still had to buy a new e-meter because a brand new e-meter came out. And there was they made people redo the student hat because that was a brand new course. Nobody got away with that one. Anyway, so that was, in my opinion, the start of Scientology, Miscavige's Scientology.
Yeah.
Where it got pretty bad. And the ethics and it got really, really heavy. And it's like, and it got even worse as time passed. But that's where I noticed, because I got in 89, and then around that point is when things got really ugly, and where for me it started, things started to not, gel very well in my head. It was like there was even more red flags, basically. But I kept going for, I don't know, another 15 freaking years.
So how did you end up going from that to becoming an ethics officer?
So funny enough, I had sort of, I was being forced to go to Toronto to get hatted as an executive director. And I was like, well, I didn't really want this position, but I ended up going to Toronto, and I ended up blowing, because I was just like, I didn't want to play anymore. I didn't want to stay in icky Toronto. No offense to my Toronto dudes. I just didn't like Toronto because Vancouver is way nicer. We're
That's
talking
a
like the
Canadian
West
thing. I got
Coast,
nothing to do with it.
right? Yeah. So anyways, so I ended up blowing because I had enough. And when I came back to Vancouver, I was told that, sorry, you can't come into the org because, they didn't call me an SP, and they didn't declare me. They just said, you can't come into the org. And I went, fine, I'm going to just get on with my life. Because, I gave up a career, and I was still young. So I thought, well, I can pick up something and start a decent career. But I ended up hooking up with this woman, not hooking up in a sexual sense, with one of the OT8s in Vancouver. Her name is Hillary Rockall. She's pretty well known in the whole Scientology community, but she sort of took me under her wing after I had left for about, I think I was away for about 4 years. I was still a Scientologist. I just wasn't a staff member, and I kind of soured on the organization. And that's a pretty common story where people kind of go, this org sucks. I'm going to go and do something else, but I'm still a Scientologist.
Right.
You know that, right, Eric? I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are like
ton of
that.
people.
Somebody in the org screwed me over. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go to another org or something like that, right? So anyways, and then I ended up slowly going back into the org. I got on what's called the OT committee, and they, you help set up events and stuff like that. And I was kind of, starting to talk to some of the staff. And anyways, I got dragged back in. And I said, well, if I'm going to go on a post, it's going to be an HCO. And I wasn't qualified because I blew from Toronto, but they completely overlooked that. So fine. That's cool. And so that's how I ended up in HCO. So it was kind of like my second stint on staff.
Yeah.
I was stupid enough to go back.
But
what did you think? What did you think about, was being an ethics officer what you thought it was going to be like, or was it different?
Oh yeah. Well, when I was the ED, I was handling ethics because there wasn't an ethics officer. So, I was familiar, like I was telling you about doing the life orientation course. I knew the conditions. I knew how to do OWs, so I could take somebody through a whole ethics program if I had to.
Okay.
So I wasn't unfamiliar with it, right? And I never changed my personality to be an ethics officer. I was just, me, right? I think the hardest part though about being an ethics officer is handling a lot of guys on masturbation.
Well, that's because there ain't nothing stopping that. That's ridiculous. That's like saying we got to make sure the sun doesn't come up tomorrow.
It's like there was only one girl I had to handle on it. One girl. All the rest were guys. And then I had one guy. He was such a nice guy, right? And he was like compulsive, and he would actually just come to ethics and says, "Well, I did it again." He was like turn himself in kind of thing, right? It's just like, geez, you know what to do. Go ahead, grab that ethics book. Away you go.
Wow. He was using you like Ethics Anonymous or something.
Yeah, it was like a compulsion, right? And the funny thing is, it's like, I mean, for me, the last thing I wanted to do is embarrass somebody over it. But it was like at times I was told to do that. It's like, make it too gruesome to confront is a saying in Scientology, right, Eric? You've heard
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah,
So
hell yeah.
you make his life so horrible that he'll never come back again. It's like, that's just it. It's not in me to do that kind of stuff. And I would just say, look, if you're going to keep doing it, you're not going to get anywhere on the bridge. So, figure it out. Because conditions don't fucking work anyways.
Right.
You can sit there and do all sorts of things. It was just like, and I knew that. I actually knew that because I've seen so many people go through ethics conditions and no change. I've done so many ethics. I shouldn't say no change. It wasn't a positive change. It was actually more like doing conditions was more like torture.
It actually makes this whole conversation just makes me nervous. I've been fucking ripping my nails apart while you're talking because it's so
no.
Yeah, that's the effect it has on me. It's like, and what you just said again is exactly what I've said so many times now, where it's like that's it just hangs over your head, and like I've said this a billion times, like once you go through you go through the right ethics handling, and let me tell you something, you don't come back there for a long time. You don't come back there.
Yeah.
I mean, I played my cards so right that I had to stay at this super intense level to always be one step ahead, like, okay, my points are up, I'm talking to people, I'm smiling, I'm palm pressing, I make sure the supervisor knows. I was like, how are you today? How's it going? When I first walk in, that's a big one, how you doing? That kind of shit. Yep. And just be VGIs, very good indicators. And it was all part of that same persona that I had to use to survive. But it's people do not think we're kidding when we say this is 24/7 angst. It never stops. And
you're always on.
And anybody anywhere, and that makes it so much worse. Like I was telling Selvas, I don't know if you ever heard me say this, but like one of the worst days of my Scientology life was when this guy was so cool, and he would take me to lunch all the time, and in the academy at Celebrity Center. Anyway, we were just really super tight, and I just happened to use him to say just a couple things, I needed to sort of let a little bit of steam out, and I knew he was good. And then he ran into some kind of issue, ended up in ethics. Anyway, he ratted my ass out. And I was just like, fuck, because now
you don't
my
have
only
a
guy,
choice.
Yeah, of course. And I know why. It's like, I get it. You got to give up somebody or it's your ass. So, and better my ass than his when, what he was thinking. But I was like, man, the one person who I could count on in this place just served me up. And I was like, fuck, but it made me so much more nervous and like my blood pressure was just skyrocketing, because and that's how I would be the whole day.
I still have a hard time trusting people.
I bet.
It doesn't go away overnight.
No.
and yeah, it really changes you as a person, right? I mean, I think
When people
I
betray your confidences, it
yeah.
absolutely changes everything. And it's just like,
Well, yeah. I mean, I did everything to try and be a good staff member, good Scientologist. My biggest downfall was the fact that I didn't give everything up that I owned, and I didn't divorce my husband. Those were the because I should have gotten trained. I should have been a fully hatted Hubbard Communications Office area secretary. I should have been OT8. I mean, that those are the kind of things they expect. And in a class 5 org, you have to live your life, you have to pay your bills. I had a full-time job. I mean,
geez,
I was self-employed.
Yeah.
I worked 5 days a week. I managed to get on a course part of before post, and then I was on post 7 days a week. And yeah. So you tell me, how do you do all that? But it was expected.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you're a piece of shit if you aren't that. I mean, that is just like this is how you're talked to. It's just like, what is wrong with you? You're out ethics, you're counter intention, it's like, oh, you know how many conditions I did on just that stuff alone because I wasn't fully trained and all fucking hatted to the nines and stuff like that. Like, that was the whole purpose, is just to give up your entire life. And it was one of the reasons why I signed 3 CR contracts, because
Wow.
to me it was like going to the ESO would have been way easier
Yeah,
because you don't have to worry about that shit, right?
for sure. I don't know how anyone did staff. I really don't. That always blew my mind. Like everyone I knew who was successful was someone like, selfless. They had some kind of talent that didn't take like roofing, but like if you could be a musician, you could go make a quick paycheck maybe, or
Right.
a bartenders. I knew bartenders who could crush in a couple days, and just make enough to hang in there,
Yeah.
But outside of people like artists or some appreciable talent that you could cash in on, like I don't even know, because I mean you can't stock shelves at Petco for 4 hours and pay your bills. You know what I
No,
mean?
that's why I was self-employed. I mean, I
Right.
was, I had a cleaning business. There was some of my commercial clients, I was charging them $50 an hour. I mean, they
Okay.
paid it, whatever. But you have to do that. I wouldn't have survived. Plus, you're donating. I mean, 35
Oh,
grand to the Ideal Org. That was just one thing. That's not. And my husband's OT5 was OT5. So I mean, he was expected to pay all the bills. And when you live in Vancouver, it's like really expensive.
Oh yeah.
Right? So you can't live on one income. I mean, we did it. I have no idea how we survive. I
Well,
honestly don't. And we did manage to pull off mortgage and stuff like that. And you're constant, even as a staff member, you're being reg to donate to the IAS. I had a lifetime membership. I was donating to other orgs for their Ideal Org in Canada. It didn't stop. It just kept
infinity.
ever.
going.
Yeah. Got to clear that planet. But yeah, on the division, so yeah, your husband obviously expected to pay all the bills. I've read that section of the marriage hat where like is that taught? Or is that, I know it's out of print because the
Yeah.
a person who should not be named in Scientology wrote it, but
Yeah.
were you aware of the marriage hat? Was
Yeah.
those rules instituted in your marriage?
It's funny. the actual marriage hat was not what you would find in an org,
Right.
but everybody knew about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I believe.
Okay.
So yeah,
That makes
so
sense.
I had a hard time with that kind of stuff because my
Good for you.
background was both my parents worked. My mom was self-employed.
Yeah.
My dad worked for a trucking company. So, it was like, no, I contribute to the marriage. And I mean, we were this close from divorcing. Like, and I was being encouraged to leave him because he wasn't on board. Little did I know he was actually reading Marty Rathbun's blog. He
Oh.
had read the Debbie Cook letter about 2 years before I left.
Wow.
Okay.
What a son of a bitch, eh?
Wow.
Yeah,
And
that
guess
was
what?
pretty
I
incendiary.
wrote a KR on him.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I could see why they'd be trying to do that. Wow.
It's so ugly. It's
Yeah.
constant turmoil.
Yeah.
It's like if you're not with us in the fold, if you have other intentionness or whatever, they'll just pick at you until they get the product.
Yeah.
And I resisted so much. And this was why for me there was so much turmoil. I mean, honestly, close to the end, I had this cute little Hyundai red sports car thing, and I'm driving down this highway because I lived about 40 minutes from the org.
Hmm.
And there were times where I looked at that concrete meridian and I thought, you know what? It might be better just to drive my car
Oh,
into that concrete meridian. It
Yeah.
got that bad. Okay, now I'm gonna cry. It got that fucking bad. How do
Yeah.
you, like, this is why I keep talking about it, because to drive somebody to that point where they want to like take themselves out is like, it's unacceptable. It's
who's for the most
unacceptable.
part like helpful to their aims and compliant and is working so much of their lives to bring about these aims, and you're still willing to destroy them
Yeah.
for small ball stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm guessing if they couldn't get that product out of you, if they finally made that decision, then it's just, kind of throwing you to the wolves, fair game, and trying to destroy you.
Well, I got the end of the beginning for me was when I got super sick. I got what's called Graves' disease. It's an
Yeah.
autoimmune
Oh,
hyperthyroid
yeah.
disease.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was on this really great weight loss diet because I was dropping weight
Oh,
like crazy. I had no idea. So I was doing the what are called the objectives, right? I was working Monday to Friday doing my cleaning, which is like really physical work. And I was fast too, because I had to be.
mm-hmm.
Most of my clients were also Scientologists. And then I would be down at the org at around 3:30. I think it was around then, to get in 2.5 hours of study, because you were supposed to do that too.
Mhm.
So I was doing that, and then I would go on post. So this was going on for a good maybe 2 years, a year and a half or something like that. And it was like it's burning the midnight oil, let me tell you, at both ends. So I'd be like shaking, and I thought, oh wow, maybe I'm not eating enough. My blood sugar is low, right? And then I was eating like a horse. Nothing was changing. And I never said anything to anybody. Nobody noticed that my hands were shaking. Um, and then I just one day it was like I was my car was a standard, and I
Mhm.
couldn't actually hold my clutch in because my leg was shaking so hard. And that's what
Dang.
happens when you have Graves' disease, right? So I go to the doctor and she says, you're this close to cardiac arrest
Yeah.
because of your resting heartbeat mine was like over 100, and it shouldn't be that high.
No.
So it was like I was really freaking sick. So I just went home.
Yeah.
And there was this whole process. Now I'm off post and I have a key position. I'm getting calls like, "Why aren't you here?" And I'm like, "I am sick." I couldn't even hardly walk because your muscle tissue starts to sort of break down
Yeah.
because you're not taking in any nutrients when you
To
have
feed it,
this. So
right.
you eat and it goes out the other end instantly. So I'm not
Yeah.
absorbing any nutrients. So finally they had the realization that, yeah, she's sick. And I remember the day. It was August 31st, 2013 was my last day on that post. And I was sitting, it was about midnight, and I'm sitting in front of the telex computer, and I couldn't sit down because I was shaking so bad. I was standing up and I sent my last telex. They were emails at the time, right? All encoded and everything like that. And I said, "This is it. This is the last. This is the last thing I'm going to do." And it was such a huge like decision, but it was so instant. And I'm not doing this anymore. And I didn't. Right? I mean, they tried to get me back, and I was doing. They put you through a program like Assist to try and get you better, and they do like they put a program together for you, right? We had a senior CS, class 8 senior CS. Her name is Shelly Hockett, in case anybody knows her. She's not a nice person. Oh, if only I could just say the words.
She's a bit of a lot to handle.
She was hardcore. This chick was hard freaking core. And she actually did my sec check before I
Yeah.
left.
So this is
So
routing you out. What do they call it?
it's not
Routing
even,
out?
it wasn't even routing. I did tell them, "Look, I'm not going to go on staff anymore, right? I'm done." But they kept trying with all these programs. It's like this sort of second evolution of love bombing when they're trying to keep you on staff. Because I'm a key person. Like, they have nobody else really in that division, other than our little Andy Jukic. That's a whole other story. I hired him as a teenager. I think he was 15. Yeah. Anyways, so I ended up just like
Whoa.
getting this sec check, and that was basically the last thing I did. And it was done by this senior CS, class 8 senior case supervisor. And that's a big deal because she's like, there's only 2 of them in Canada. So, like, her tech is kind of out if I blew.
Yeah.
I wonder
Oh,
if she went to cramming,
right.
because to have a PC blow,
Yeah, not
I-
good.
not
I
good,
guess.
not
Wow.
good. Not good
Yeah,
at
that's
all.
big trouble. That's big trouble.
Yeah, and you know what? I thought about this too, and I thought, do you think people are wondering about this? Like, if it was me and it was a staff member that left after a sec check from a senior case class 8 senior case supervisor, I go, "Ooh, that's fishy."
Mm-hmm.
So, and I mean, my radar went up too. It was like, she didn't salvage me. Like, there's something not right here. I wasn't completely out of Scientology at that point. I was off staff. It was like, that's it. I'm done with staff. I was still a Scientologist. And then funny thing, one of my favorite shows is Dancing with the Stars. And Leah Remini happened to be on that season when I was at home sick, and she started chirping off about about Scientology because she had just left that same
Right.
year, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, what a bitch!" But oh wow, this is interesting what she's saying, and that's stuck in my head. So there was a series of things that occurred, and then I found out my husband had been basically off under the radar for 2 years. And we had a really long chat this one night. I had thought he was having an affair on me because he had been so secretive.
Right.
And turns out, no, he's been on all these, anti-Scientology sites.
Yeah, he was
So
having an affair with reality.
yeah, that's a good one. I should tell him that. And
Okay.
yeah, so he was reading Marty's blog and listening to Rinder and all this kind of stuff, right? And he just said to me, he says, "I'm out." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "What? What do you mean you're out?" He's like, "No, I'm done with Scientology." Well, actually, he was done with the organization Scientology, because we did go into the independent field for like a blink of an eye. And
It seems like it is a growth step for a lot of people on their way of getting themselves out.
yeah, and yeah, that was it. The worst part, that wasn't even so bad, and it sounded kind of bad. The worst part was the whole disconnection when my sister disconnected, and that's, I don't want to talk about that one. There'd be too many tears.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's not, I don't think it's ever just one thing that gets people out. It's like a series of things, and it just sort of niggles in the back of your head. And it started way back when this whole Miscavige thing started to change things and alter Scientology. It was kind of weird. And yeah, plus my experience in LA was just so like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Although I do like LA.
To change tenets or ideas, functions, or ceremonies of a cult. Then it doesn't seem as important anymore. Each of the individual things, if they weren't eternal, if they weren't universal truths, if they weren't forever, if they can be edited, are they that valuable anymore? So, which begins, the kind of dissolution of a lot of these organizations. So, it was dangerous for him and the leadership to engage in that, but it seemed at the time, looking back, like a very effective cash grab. All of the reissues, all of the
amazing cash grab, fantastic, yeah,
unbelievable. Yeah, you pump like the entire system for another round.
Yeah.
But they lost a lot of people at that time in 89, 90, 91. I remember that was the first time I ever saw a lot of strife, which was, and that's, like I say, why be in a cult if you're not going to be in a cult, right? So, well, we're very culty about 90% of the stuff. That's sort of what Miscavige made it become, where it used to just be, we are cults, right? And Source or GTFO, and then it became, well, yeah, but because I did find that matchbook that LRH wrote, more semicolons or whatever, and so that gave us reason to believe we can do this. but
exactly.
A lot of heavy culty people left, like you said.
Yeah, and the independent field got pretty big. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot happening in the independent field. I mean, there really isn't anything in Canada. It's more in the States that it really took off.
What do they charge? Like, I don't even know how that works. I've never asked anyone. I never knew anyone who was in it, but I mean, I knew some people, but I didn't ask them.
They price their stuff differently.
I hope it's like 1/10 the price.
It's way less. Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's also, it's not all the there's not so much of the withhold pulling and stuff like that. There, like when I did my ARC straight wire in the independent field, and I don't even think he asked me if I had a withhold. I mean, they'll do that, if your needle isn't floating, but I was probably so freaking happy, not being in an org and not being worried about, having a withhold pull, I was, it was like there wasn't any need. I was fine. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't like, I
Yeah.
had nothing. I mean, even though I had nothing to hide then, it was always like you're always in fear when you would go into a session and pick up the cans. It's like, oh my God, what are they going to find out now?
Right.
It's like, oh, did I do anything? And you're already in this anxiety about it, right?
Yeah. Totally.
So stupid. Yeah. I mean,
So
I had
you've
a
been out
QR
for
written on me because I had the TV going on in the background. It's like that was the kind of stuff that I'd get written up for. It's like, how stupid. Going for a smoke.
Yep.
It's like, I'm working here for free. And you're telling me I can't go out and have a smoke when I want to have a smoke? Like, and those were the kind of things that really pissed me off.
Yeah.
Run church like an Amazon fulfillment center.
Exactly.
You know what's another cool way to describe, like in the real world, let's say, okay, Selfless's whole band doesn't show up, and then he's like, okay, fuck it. And then he puts the drum here, and he's got the hi-hat in between his, elbow and here, and then you got a kazoo, and the guitar, and you fucking did it all yourself. Scientology would be like, no violin?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where's
the string, dude? Where's the string?
It was never good enough.
Never, ever. Anyone else would be like, God damn, Selvas, that was amazing. You did it. You played fucking Rush 2112 by yourself. Fucking. But in Scientology, it'd be like, dude, without the strings, that's just a flunk.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, where the fuck I get these extra arms? And that's we make it go right. It's so fucking ridiculous.
Too.
Oh my God, you're hitting there.
It's so crazy.
You couldn't have described it any better. Oh God. And that you turn into a perfectionist. I have this freaking workbook. I'm trying to like unperfectionize myself because, well, especially when you're in HCO, it's like you have to spot all the things that are wrong. It's like you hardwire yourself to every single thing that is wrong. You notice it. You have to do something about it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like my poor husband. I feel so sorry for him. It's so bad.
Would you feel like you're defending the desk of L. Ron Hubbard in a way? You're defending the very pen from which all these edicts come from. So
that's who you are representing. However, when you go to a staff meeting and you haven't hired anybody, you're a piece of shit. And you're told so by your superiors that, HCO is useless. They're doing nothing for the org. You get like berated. And I would sit there going, well, wait a minute. Now you're talking about LRH's office. That's kind of weird. Like, I'm not going to take it too personally, but really, this is how you talk about, because that's the whole thing. You're doing the work of LRH.
This is like the bearers of the Ark of the Covenant catching smack at the office meeting, like the damn tablets and the thing, and you parade them around and get to point at them, and no, it's this, and it definitely doesn't. It doesn't speak to me how, from as an outsider, the reverence that I would expect for such an office and for the name attached to it.
Yeah, there was none. And, I'd sit there in these stupid staff meetings and I would have my hands down and I'd be holding the chair, like gripping the chair, white knuckling it, because I would be so like enraged and listening to how they're dressing people down. It would be the executive, and this wasn't uncommon.
Right.
This is how the management system worked.
Yeah.
It's like staff meeting. They'd stand on their soapbox for a fucking hour. It's like you already have to stay an hour past your post time to listen to these people just berate you because the stats aren't good enough.
So like straight out of like a boiler room sales meeting, the hard freaking pitch from the sales manager. You know,
Yeah.
maybe something a la Glengarry Glen Ross, if you know Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Yeah,
Always
I
be
get
close.
the idea.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
it's shocking how, you know, you're on one hand, like they'll be like, you're the most important people on earth, you know, you're the only ones on the planet who can do this, you
Yeah.
fucking idiot pieces of shit. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's no wonder you got mental issues, you know? It's like kind of goes with the territory. Like
Well, you
I
have
was
to-
I realized at like
that.
13 though, part of what gives you that nervousness is because you actually realize everyone is like 1 second from bypassing and handling.
Mm,
Everyone's always 1 second because that's like the pivot you have to take if you want to stay out of Gabrielle's office. You know, it's like you got to be able to show that. Listen, Selfless had this all fucked up. I got there, I closed the blinds. You know, I did blind tech right away. You know, and you always do this one, this one, this one, and this one. You know, things that make no sense that no one ever talks to you about or tries to make sense. You just know you do the first window, 8th window, second window, 4th window, and you know, and then didn't do radio tech and da 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 da. And so if things are about to hit the fan, the only way to protect myself is to throw Selfless to the wolves.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I had a
absolutely.
bypass and handle. His shit was crazy.
Yeah.
So everyone's just about ready to do that, you know,
Oh,
that
yeah.
pivot.
You're always
The
throwing
bypass and
somebody
handle
under
pivot.
the bus to protect your ass. It becomes, yeah, it's just normal.
It's actual complete and utter terrific insanity
It is.
where,
I
but
don't
it
know
just,
how. Yeah,
it's
I
just
don't
a
know how
normal
it
day.
worked in the Sea Org. It probably it goes up a notch or two, I'm sure.
I don't know, quite frankly. I always thought that being staff would be way harder than Sea Org. So that's just my opinion. Because, like, I mean, I can't imagine going through all that and still having to somehow pay your bills. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, at least I don't care if all you got is beans and rice and you only get to sleep 45 minutes a week. You don't have to pay the bills,
Right.
you know?
Or
So
you don't get asked to donate either.
that's another thing. Yeah. Like, I remember that was the one thing that my mom and dad were sort of okay with. Like, we just started lying out our ass when it came to any of the, like, remember how everyone for their own stat needed to confirm you for an event? So
Yep.
your 19 closest friends would run to you. Hey, Stelvis, did you confirm for the 100-day event? And you're like, yeah, 9 times
Yeah.
fucking already today, right? Fuck, you know, I can't get, are you sure I can't confirm it? You're like, I confirmed, you know. And then, so we start, my mom was never the kind of person to do that, but she just had her fill of that shit. And she's like, yeah, we'll definitely be there. Right. So everyone would shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
We're all there. All 4 of us were going to be there with bells on. Dude, look for us front row. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we would never make any of these motherfuckers. Never. Because
Right.
I'm like, I have a perfect excuse. I have no way of getting there. I don't know how to get there. I don't have a car. I don't know what you're talking about. But my mom had to go to the hospital to deliver babies. So what you want from me? Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And then my dad, you know, the car didn't work or what. I didn't have to even get that far. But I was like, wow, that was the first time I ever saw my parents work together to lie their ass off and both be okay with it to avoid these Auditor's Day, LRH's birthday,
Yeah.
like, you know, New Year's, whatever, all the bullshit 6 events a year, you know?
Yeah. It turns you into a liar, cheater. You probably, you know what I mean? It's like that becomes, it's like, and you don't even give it a second thought.
No,
It's like, oh yeah, I'm coming. Whatever, I'm not
for
going.
sure.
You
I'll
know?
be right there.
But,
Yeah.
Have to
but
be.
let me tell you, in Vancouver, because we're so ethical in Vancouver, we wrote knowledge reports on those public that didn't show up. That's
my
what started
God.
to happen. And it was that they were called false reports.
Oh,
Yep. And on top of that, when you were at the event, there was somebody who had the, you know, they'd have these posters. They were confirm boards. Everybody's name would be on there. Someone was in charge of bringing that frickin' poster to the event, and they would check off people that would come. And those that wouldn't show up like 5 minutes before the event, we were calling them. Hey, where are you? You're on the confirm board. Why aren't you here?
Damn. Wow.
The event Nazis.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is hardcore.
It's pretty hardcore. It's desperation, right? Although
That's
I'll tell you,
amazing.
I was in charge of the call-in for that the War is Over event when they won the tax exemption
Okay.
thing.
Right.
And
92.
So I was still fairly fresh. I just got back from LA, so I was pretty gung-ho. And we got 600 people to the event in Vancouver.
Wow.
That's a lot of people.
That's incredible.
For a small org. Well, I mean, I think we're about the second largest in Canada. Vancouver was. Toronto was always the biggest.
Huge.
It was a big deal. I mean, we were calling guys that had just bought a book, and you know, I mean, it was the PR behind it was pretty good to hook people. But
That's amazing.
It didn't even apply to Canada. And that was one of the things that went through my head. It's like, this doesn't even apply to Canada. What the hell? Like, who cares? It was like a big deal for everybody in the States. And I was like, whatever. I'll do my job, I guess. But you know what I mean? It's like everybody else on the planet, it didn't affect. Only in the US. Right.
That's phenomenal. And you've been out how long total?
Me? 11 years now.
Yeah.
And you're still with your husband?
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's so cool. God, I love hearing a story end up okay. Fuck.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well, as okay as it can be. Trust me.
That's what I'm saying. Listen, if you guys were living in a tree house right now, it would be wonderful in comparison. So there's nothing that doesn't sound good to me, but you know,
there's a lot of fallout. There's a lot of fallout from, I mean, he was in it for 40 years and he got up to OT5. And I tell you, the higher you go up the bridge, there's more mind fuckery up there. There really, really is. He survived pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we both have some pretty nasty health issues. So it really does.
That's amazing.
I know. The guy's a miracle child. He was struck by lightning when he was a kid. He got into a major motorcycle accident, broke his back. I don't know.
And he found Scientology, which is worse than all of them.
Yeah, he was in it in like the 70s, right? He went clear when he was pretty young. It was all like the old stuff, and I think it was the OT levels, I think, that really did it to him, that really, when things started to go sideways. Like he did OT four times, 3 or 4 times.
Jeez.
Wow.
Imagine having to find those BTs that many times. Ugh.
I knew people who were on OT7 for like 7-8 years. I mean, it was just impossible to finish. I mean, they flew, 15 times to Flag to get sec checked on their own dime.
Yeah, that's about, like, for a Canadian to do those 6 months checks.
Uh-huh.
It was about 10 grand Canadian.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I tell you, I saw people going up the OT levels, like public and stuff like that, and they became worse humans. It was just like, what are you talking about? But it makes sense to me now. There's so much pressure on them. They have to do like 6 or 7 sessions a day.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't keep any sort of normal job.
No.
right?
Yeah, it's
I
it's
mean,
just utter destruction.
and that was, I remember having these conversations with my husband, and we were like, how are you going to get to OT6? Like, how are you going to get just through OT6? Because OT6 is a course, right? And it's long. And he was a bus driver, and you only get X amount of time off a year, right? I think he had like 6 weeks off. And people were doing the OT6 course for longer than that, right? And they won't let you leave until you're finished. He could have lost his job. If and that's how, it's crazy shit what they do, right?
Yeah.
And then you get on to OT7. How are you going to do all those sessions while you're driving a bus? Like he had to work the longest shifts. So he was working 12 hours a day. So what do? Audit the other 12 hours and just not sleep? It's like this is why people go so cuckoo, trying on these upper levels. There's an incredible amount of pressure, and then the financial part of it.
Yeah.
Like we could not wrap our heads around it. And I'm sure that had something to do with him. Well, actually, he got sent the Debbie Cook letter, so that's where it started. And I mean, the relief we had when we decided not to continue in corporate Scientology. We stayed up for almost 48 hours just talking and reconnecting, and
Wow.
like it was like, because I mean, we were at each other. We were like at opposite ends. And like it was just, this is how relationships are in Scientology. It's like you don't become closer, you become practical enemies if you're not obviously on the same side, right?
Yeah.
And he was moving away, and I was in HCO going, you ain't going anywhere, you out ethics motherfucker. You know what I mean? That's just how it was. So it was truly it was a revitalization of our marriage. But it's also hard to have lived through all of that and then try to unwind or sort of peel the onion back from all that trauma.
Yeah.
There was a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad you got out, and that's an super exciting. I mean, like I said, I was telling Selvas I could keep you on here for 7 hours, but
Yeah.
I know we have an audience that can't just stay here forever. And we've done it. We're at 1:47, so we should wrap. But I want to thank you so much for being here, and I want everyone, please go subscribe to Gabrielle, and hit the like on everything you see. Hit her playlists, give her a bunch of sweet messages, and you are amazing. I really want to talk to you again too.
Absolutely.
But like I said, it's
so much more.
Yeah, I know there's so much. But that was really that. Like I said, I have no nails now.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's just I can't help it. I can't help it. But it was fascinating, horrific, but also it really it also makes me realize that I didn't necessarily go insane. Like everyone else felt the same thing I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
What I've been saying to Selfless since I got here, he gets to keep hearing from other people.
Oh yeah.
It's
over and over again.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like that because people think and I understand. I would 100% think that there was some hyperbole or a little bit of exaggeration, okay, on our parts when you hear the 24/7 fucking angst and fear and all that shit. And I'm like, no, I mean exactly what I said.
Yeah.
I didn't say it because it was 19 hours a day. It's the fucking clock. There's never a time when you're awake where that shit is not impinging on you, and to a point where it could drive you absolutely batshit, and it actually clouds your ability to hope. Like I say, the abuse starts when the hope ends.
Yeah,
absolutely. It makes it impossible to hope.
To leave. There is no
You-
hope. There's no out.
No, nothing. And like I said, you know, it's not that you're happy with anything, but you know, after that 1,000th shit sandwich, you know, the next one is not quite as hard as you would think to get down.
Yes.
You know, you just don't think
Yeah.
about it anymore, like as if you had no taste buds or something. You know, that's how I look at it. But I really
never
want to thank
told
you for
about the
being
rice and beans that I had to be on all the time.
there.
I think I'd
but I
rather
want to
eat
thank you
shit
very
than
much
rice
for
and beans.
yeah. But I want to
Anyway,
thank you
yes.
really for coming here and sharing this stuff with us. It meant the world to me, and
Aw.
I know Selfless
Thank you.
loved it. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate you, and we want to do this again and do part 2.
Absolutely.
Sure.
But everyone, make sure you subscribe to Gabrielle, please, and leave a bunch of great notes and let her know how awesome she is. And anything you want to plug before you say bye?
No.
Okay.
I want to
All right.
plug you guys. Thanks for having me on and reaching out. I mean,
Oh,
I
thank
don't
you.
do a lot of this. We got a lot of doctor's appointments, and I'm, you know, just picking up the pieces and doing some therapy and trying to live a bit of a life as well. So, I really, I enjoy communicating my experience to others so they really understand how gross this cult is. It
Well, I want to
really,
give you
really
and your
is.
husband a huge hug, and I really
Aw,
appreciate you.
thank you, Eric.
Okay.
Thank you. Mwah.
You be well,
Sweetheart.
and we will see you soon. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye. It was
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Fantastic guest. One of the deeper
Goes the
conversations
dynamite.
into what it was like to survive and
Look
live.
at the fucking hair on my damn it. Look at
Oh,
the
yeah.
sticking straight the fuck up. Like,
You can't really disguise that.
oh my God. Like that. Yeah. That's she kept like saying the same things. Like I've said over and over and over. Like when I hear other people say them, it's like, on one hand, of course, it's horrific, right? But on the other hand, I'm like, dude, I didn't go completely crazy. That was what it's designed to do.
Correct.
You know, because it works so well with everybody, regardless of where you came from, how much money you got, anything. This will crush you. It's no joke.
Absolutely not. It's meant to. Yeah, so that they can just keep making money off of you and manipulating you.
That's why my favorite thing to scribble on the ground is Scientology is evil, because it just sums it up.
Correct. Agreed.
You know?
Yeah, it is that simple, front to back. Well, if you're manipulating people and you're taking from them their free will and doing this to especially children, you're doing it to innocent people who have no other recourse, and the people that were born in that, like, doing harm to innocents on that level knowingly, I don't know if that isn't evil. I don't know what is. So, yeah, straight up evil.
Yeah, it's just I'm really, a part of me is more confident than ever that we're going to take this shit down, because you know, people see this. What is she, a fucking, does she have 6 Oscars back there we didn't see, or is this true?
Yeah.
You know, you could tell what's true. You know, I mean, that was every bit of it. I could tell you 100% was exact. Okay. And
conversational. It was not any of it forced, easy, and like shooting from the hip. Like, yeah, that's somebody's life, is what that looks like to me. And I have no reason to discount.
And you do this long enough, like I say, and it turns incredibly powerful people. Like, we're not talking about some Dunsky, right? Gabrielle is super, super sharp. Okay. She was able to do stuff at a very young age that most people wouldn't dream of. Being an ED over there is an unheard of, 24 or 5. That's insane.
Yeah.
So for her to be able to pull that off, make that happen, we're talking about the most able of the most able. And yet, what happens when you fast forward 2, 3, 4, 5 years? You want to drive off the damn road.
Yes.
Right. And that, like, it'd be totally different if it was just a couple, you know, people that just drank too much and had temper issues or some shit. You know, it'd be like, no, we're talking about people who are totally together, going bananas.
Yeah.
And the more and more I hear like these stories, how this is not going to be impactful and make people understand where we're coming. I mean, we are doing exactly what they don't want done. You think they want this story out? You think they want my story? They don't want none of this out.
No.
Okay.
Executive director who blew and then like was sec checking and then figured it out as well. But her OT5 husband was like in advance of that. They don't want any of that.
And how good was he? He was doing that shit for 2 years on the sly.
Wow.
That dude's amazing.
I couldn't do that. Well, I don't know that I could. I haven't been in that situation. I don't know that but
let me tell you, I'd have flunked the shit out of that. I would have come up to you and said, "Hey, Selfish, look." And we'd have both been in we'd have been in South Africa painting fucking trash cans or some shit.
Yep.
He kept all that shit secret and was somehow able to maintain himself. I don't know. Wow.
Yeah, because those are that's a potential outcome if anybody figured that out. Wow. Just
that.
A huge episode. And like you're saying, obviously, this seems like it's leading to a part 2 because there's just, especially you two communicating back and forth here. That was just fascinating to watch. I learned a very, very lot in this.
I tore every nail off, man. That's fucking amazing. That was hardcore. Wow. What a show, dude. I can't take too many more. we need an easier show. Oh shit. But that was awesome. That's why we're here, and I'm really glad we're able to share that. And I really hope that hits home and hits some hearts and hits some heads.
I think
and people realize just what a beast this is, because that's why we're here. And it's really easy to forget. There's only one purpose for me, and that's to weaken this cult and to try to heal myself. And that's it. So, that was a really heavy show for me, and I'm that was powerful.
Yeah. Well, thank you to both of you and to any survivor that's brave enough to share those stories. It is hard. It's not the easiest thing ever. And it's the most informative thing for us Never Ends to get a window into what this is, to get, from the person who actually experienced it.
That was hella triggering for me.
Fighting.
That was hella triggering.
I'm sorry, man, but thank you for providing a service to the community. But yeah, let's not blow you off of the planet.
Yeah, that was. I need a beer, but
let's have at
it. but thank you for another great show. That was amazing, Selfless, and I can't wait for our next one. And
absolutely, man.
Holy shit, man! It's I really felt like we got something done today.
Yeah, it was a great show.
All right, my friend, I love you, and I haven't seen. Is Pearl back there? Oh,
yeah, she is.
Oh, hi, Pearl, love you.
Hi, love your face.
Yeah, it's 4:20 somewhere. It's almost 4:20. Yeah, perfect. But anyway, thanks. I'm discombobulated. That was a hell of a show. But I have so many thoughts in my head right now. It's crazy. But anyway, thanks for driving the boat while I wasn't even watching, man. We would have crashed into an iceberg. I didn't even pay attention. It went by like 6 minutes again.
Yeah, just letting you all riff, and just that connection is just trying to. Well, it was easy to steer the ship, and it was just so informative. And yeah, I interjected from time to time, but really it was just there was so much to learn. and yeah, from somebody very highly placed at a young age, like you're saying. There's more for this discussion, I think. Like
A hell of a lot more. A hell of a lot more.
Absolutely.
But I really appreciate her for giving us that opportunity. That was amazing.
Yes.
That was amazing.
Fantastic.
Okay, my brother, anything else?
I think that's what it is for right now. We're just gonna have another Thursdays at 2 at the regular old time, same bat time channel.
I look forward to it, and have a great day, everybody. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys very much. You mean the world, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right, later on, everybody. Goodbye.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Be good. But yeah.